it's me! I bet you didn't expect to see me this morning. How are we all doing, eh? Seems like we haven't seen each other for absolutely ages. Well, briefly I meet some people in the streets and we have a chat from across the road, miles away it seems, but I don't like not having to hug people because, you know, we like to hug people and greet people. And as a community, I'm finding it hard not to have that social contact, to be honest. We're in lockdown, aren't we? We don't have a choice. And in our Acts reading this morning, the early Christians, they were having a whale of a time. They could meet together, they met for teaching, for fellowship, they went to the temple courts every day to pray and to link with each other. And what are we doing here? Well, today we're trying to invent new ways of doing old things, really, aren't we? We can't socialise with each other, we can't go out and have fun with each other, we can't even go to the temple courts. Although I'm not sure I know any temple courts in Southminster. The only courts I know are the tennis courts. Anyway, teaching is certainly different nowadays. And the reading is talking about, in Acts, about how they had sacraments, they shared together, and all the sharing we can do together is either from across the road in the street or like this. This is a new adventure, I think, for most of us. So, what about our second reading? Well, there are two metaphors in our second reading. The first one is that Jesus is the Good Shepherd. He looks after his sheep. And the second metaphor in it is that Jesus is the gate and no one can get through the gate unless they go through him. So, let's look first of all at the first reading. The first reading is about, just going to get my prop here, about Jesus being the Good Shepherd. And here he is. Hey, come on. I've got to share it with you. Okay, the Good Shepherd, he looks after his sheep. You know, Judea is a really dry, rocky, desolate place. Not good for cultivation at all, but it is good for grazing. And there were lots of shepherds and lots of sheep all over the place. And Jesus, he is the shepherd. That is the good one. He got to know his sheep quite well because he'd been with them for years and years. The shepherds looked after their sheep, so it's no wonder that they knew their names. What's your name? I don't know. What's your name? Barbara. Okay, this is Barbara. She's one of the sheep. And the shepherds used to build up a really strong relationship with them. They recognised them by name, and the sheep followed the shepherd everywhere. In fact, it was all about recognition, really, because the gatekeeper would recognise the sheep and the shepherd, and he would let him come into the sheepfold. And the shepherd recognised his sheep. He called them by name. He knew each one of them. And of course, the sheep, they recognised the shepherd because, oh yes, I know, it's lovely to see you too. Yep, he had a special call for them, so they knew when to come. Well, isn't it strange really that in the resurrection story, it wasn't until the risen Christ called Mary by her name that she recognised Jesus. And we recognise Jesus when he calls us by name as well. He doesn't say, "Oi, you, I want you to do something." No, he says, "Hey, Jenny, Peter, or Saul, or Timothy, or even John," because we are the sheep. And Jesus knows us by name, and we are safe. Yes, we are safe. Yes, we are safe with him. He's the good sheep that leads us out. He goes out ahead to make sure everything is safe for us. And there is no pressure. We're not driven out, we're led out of the sheepfold. Jesus goes ahead to see that everything is safe for us. The Pharisees didn't understand this, of course. No, the Pharisees, they were too busy thinking that they were the good shepherds, and they were so good at shepherding that they didn't remember the sheep. They forgot all about the sheep. Now, the second one is that Jesus says he is the gate. You want to go and get a gate. Where are we going to get a gate from? You think you found one over here? Oh, yeah. Well done. We have a gate. Jesus is the gate. This is one of his I am sayings. And I am is really another sign for God. Because when Moses says to God, "Who shall I say sent me?" God replies, "I am who I am. Say, I am sent you." So when Jesus says, "I am the gate," or "I am the good shepherd," he is talking about God. Okay, so the large sheepfolds would have a gate like this, and there would be a gatekeeper who would let us in. Yay! And keep out the thieves and the robbers. But not all sheepfolds were that big. Some were very small, and in fact they didn't have gatekeepers. They didn't even have gates. The good shepherd would lay down in the gap between, and he would become the gate. Thus he would keep all the sheep safe and all the sheep in the pen together. And he was protecting them. He was protecting them from the thieves and the robbers, but not only that, from the predators as well, and also actually from the sheep themselves, because the sheep, and I'm sorry to say this, but the sheep are not very bright. Did you hear that? Oh, sorry. Yes, the sheep are very, very clever, but they're not very bright. Okay, and of course they would go following off other sheep and wander away, and you know the story about the lost sheep, don't you? But the sheep couldn't stay in the sheepfold forever. No, because all they had to eat was the last year's dry hay and probably stale, murky water. No, Jesus opens the gate and he leads them out to that cool running water and that fresh, green, succulent pasture. And it's a bit like us really, because we can't get stuck in the sheepfold, especially when there is so much greenery and living water out there. No, Jesus wants us to come out of the gate and he wants us to follow him. And you know, when the shepherd used to lie down in front of that gap, he was actually risking his own life, because it was only him separating the outside evil people and wolves and all those people from getting to the sheep. And it's a bit like Jesus really, because Jesus has laid down his life to keep us safe. So the Pharisees and the Sadducees were the ones that were actually likened to the thieves and the robbers. So who are the thieves and the robbers today that we have to be aware of? Well, we must be on our guard against temptation. Be aware of who the Pharisees and Sadducees are. They are the people that are really risking our relationship with Jesus. It is, I've got to find my place now because I've lost it. Yes, it is the people that will want to steal what does not belong to them. It's those who kill the trust that we had in them, and those who destroy our faith. So we must be on our guard against those Pharisees and Sadducees. Keep Jesus in our sight. He makes sure that the sheep are safe and are fed. After all, Jesus wants us to have everything in abundance. Our whole life he wants us to have in abundance. That doesn't necessarily, of course, mean abundance of health or abundance of wealth. No, it's what our hearts matter, because it's not what we have in our hands, it's what we have in our hearts that gives us that abundance. So, Lord, during this pandemic, help us to follow you to all the good things that you have for us, and keep us safe in your love and mercy. Amen.